big wireless companies sold you an outdated plan tied to long-term contracts and mystery fees. Simple Mobile's different. You get a lightning-fast 4G LTE nationwide network with no contract, ever. And keep the phone and number you love. Just text the word BYOP to 611-611 to see if your phone is compatible. Simple Mobile. Out with the old, in with the simple.
Standard text message and data rates may apply based on your mobile phone service. Please refer always to the privacy policy at simplemobile.com/privacy policy and the terms and conditions at simplemobile.com/terms and conditions.
Hello, world. This is TJ Morris, and you're listening to ET Radio. Welcome aboard, all you ground troops spinning around smartly on the planet and out in space. Welcome to the cosmos. We are the Cosmos Connection with Janet Carroll Lessin and myself, TJ Morris, also known as Teresa J. Morris. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. We're very excited to have a musician for you on Valentine's Day. This is very rare. We just take who Janet Carroll Lessin finds floating around in space. So this particular gentleman, you may remember the music. He was inspired to write, and we have grown up with it, with actually a song called Wipeout. And his name is Merrell Fankhauser. So I remembered his face. I imagine you guys have seen him around too, television, movies, films. There's some pictures on here for TJ Morris ET Radio you can see and see if you don't remember him. Sort of a surfer-looking dude, very good-looking, handsome man. And now he's up there with me and Janet hanging out, but he's still hanging out with a big name, so he's considered an A-lister. And we're excited because he lives over in California. Janet Carroll Lessin's coming to you from Maui, Hawaii, and I'm coming to you from Gulf Breeze, Florida. So without further ado, let me get Janet on here, and then we're going to read to you about this diverse and interesting gentleman that she has interviewed before and brought us on Valentine's Day. So let me get Janet on here. Janet Carroll Lessin, are you there? Can you hear me?
I'm here. Aloha. It's good to be here. Just want to let you know we have storms, so if I'll fade away, I'll try to come back on something else. I can call back in. But we do have storms here in Maui, Hawaii.
Oh.
So, yeah. So, yeah, our river is overflowing. I know Merrell will relate to you how when he lived in Maui, I think he was out towards Hana or something, but I'm over in the Wailuku, Wai'ehu area. For those who are familiar with the Hawaiian Maui Islands, it's like Iao Valley, our little... We're the second river. There's 4 rivers that come from the West Maui Mountains. And it's been torrential rain, so we can't cross our stream and get out of here. And the electric almost went off, and the river's chocolate muddy. And so it's an exciting day here in Maui.
Okay.
And I'm really excited to be here. What else do you want to know?
Tell me about this guy, Merrell. Now, apparently, he's lived in Louisville in California, and he's been over there close to you too, but he has a big record. I mean, he even told me that he played with Willie Nelson in Texas. So he's played with Jan and Dean, which I'm real familiar with, out of Kentucky, where he was, I guess, born over there. We'll make sure he tells us first-hand information on himself. But everybody loves Jan and Dean, and his pictures are up everywhere. I used to eat, like, regularly lunch every day and got to meet one of them. I don't know which one, with the producer that lived right there over in Central City, which is close to where I was living in Beaver Dam. But did you meet him, or you've just interviewed him several times? Or tell us what you...
No, I've interviewed Merrell a couple times. He's a friend of the world-famous Steve Omar, who's a UFO researcher.
Good old Steve. Yeah.
And Steve had me reach out to Merrell. This is years ago, and so we've had shows periodically. It's been a while since we've had a show, but Merrell has lived one of the most diverse and interesting careers in music. He was born in Louisville, Kentucky, and he moved to California when he was 13 years old. He went on to become one of the innovators of surf music and psychedelic folk rock. His travels from Hollywood to his 15-year jungle experience on the island of Maui have been documented in numerous music books and magazines in the United States and Europe. And he gained legendary international status through the field of rock music, and his credits include over 400 songs published and released. He is a multi-talented singer, songwriter, and unique guitar player whose sound has delighted listeners for over 50 years. And anyway, there's some kind of book that refers to, but he's, he's played and sung with the greatest, and his latest, he's in a, you have to tell us about it, but he's in a UFO, let me pull that up, a UFO, I was trying to
he's like an ET, a recipient of inspiration, which is, we're really excited about this, folks, because it's really, a lot of famous names are coming forward with their music in the extraterrestrial genre, which, this is TJ Moore's ET Radio, so we specialize in ET divination, inspiration, and you guys know I'm a psychic medium, so this is exciting. I'm with BMI, and he's with ASCAP, and you musicians will know what we're talking about, but this guy actually gets a real paycheck. He actually gets royalties from songs, so, he's like a been there, done that kind of guy, so I'm really excited to have him on the show and give us firsthand experience, professional musician and not just singer-songwriter, which, go ahead.
Let me finish what I was saying about Electica, okay? And
yes.
It's a unique and exciting concept album called Electica. It's a brainchild of Joanne Summerscales, and I was on her show once, founder of the etnewsroom.com. And if you look at the album cover, I'm going to put it on the website. I'm just capturing the image of it. But it's an amazing picture. Looks like Sgt. Pepper's. But if you look through all the characters,
Club Band.
It's got Dr. Stephen Lear and Jim Mars and Travis Walt. It's got all the UFO people. Doesn't have the Lessons, though. Doesn't have Therese J. Morris. We have to make that change for the next one. But it has Merrell.
Well, if we live long enough to change the world, we'll get Merrell to make us a new one before he leaves the planet. Well, he may have to stick around a few more years to get us on there. Yeah, he needs some old women. We used to be pretty good-looking women, but you talk about a hunk. I swear, Janet, I think I had a crush on this dude. I really did. I mean, he's close to my age.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna. I think we should bring
him on here
and let Merrell tell his own story. But I'm really curious. I'm looking at this album and I want to know what it's about. But Merrell, welcome to the show, and tell us what you want about yourself. But somewhere in the course of this show, I want to know about this album and what it means. I mean, there's all these people. Are they on the album, or is it just musicians? You don't have Michael Lee Hill here. Michael Lee Hill is the son of Eric Clapton, and he was adopted out, and then he found out later, he was so shocked, he was already a full-on musician, and then he finds out he's Eric Clapton's son. He found his birth mother first, and she goes, "Do you want to know who your father is?" And he goes, "Oh yeah, that'd be nice. Who's my father?" It was like amazing. Anyway, well, all right. Merrell,
I want to hear Merrell. Yeah, you've heard me before. I haven't. I'm excited. Merrell, you're live and on the air with TJ and Janet, or Janet and TJ. Welcome, Merrell, and we're real excited to have you, as you can tell. So we're going to let you take the floor. Tell us all about you, because remember, I've never interviewed you. I recognize your picture and your work, but tell me who you are, Merrell. You were born on the planet.
First of all, thank you both for all those flattering remarks. And I want to wish everybody a warmest aloha on Valentine's Day today.
Thank you. Yeah.
And
thank you.
TJ, actually, my parents spelled my name like it should be pronounced Merrell, but it's Merle, like Merle Haggard.
All right, Merrell.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ah, okay, yeah. I saw Merrell, so I apologize,
Yeah.
Merle.
Yeah.
But yeah, I swear I have known your picture and your work, but I'm really shocked. So finally, after all these years, in my mind, I get to hear the voice and know at least the ET energy that goes with that. So I'm real excited to make your acquaintance in the sound waves, Merrell. I will say it properly now, Merrell Haggard.
Thank you.
Merrell Fankhauser. Now, please tell me, is Fankhauser German or Dutch or Swiss, or what is
It's
the
Swiss,
origin of that?
And my grandparents actually came from Bern, Switzerland in the late 1800s, and they settled in parts of Ohio, actually, where there was like homestead land back then. And actually, my grandfather wasn't married yet when he came, and he met this French-Canadian Wyandot Indian lady named Nellie Tayo, and they were married. And then when my dad met my mom, he met my mom at Churchill Downs, where the Kentucky Derby is run. And my mom was born in Germany, so she was German. So I'm German, Swiss, and part Wyandot Indian. And,
wow. Well, it makes
yeah.
a gorgeous combination of biological, if you don't mind me saying so.
Well,
beautiful container that you got there going on for this ET spirit.
I really relate to Native Americans, and when I moved to Hawaii in 1973, I felt an immediate kinship to the Hawaiians, the people in Hawaii, and how they accepted me so well, being a blonde, haole. But anyhow, the E.T. Album that just came out here in January, Eclectia, you were talking about the album cover. Well, some of the musicians are on it, and actually some of the people like Grant Cameron, the UFO researchers that are on the cover, are also on the album, because the album is unique because it's 17 bands from the U.S., Canada, and the UK that all feel their music has been influenced or inspired by ETs or UFOs. And there's a map inside the CD cover that numbered, and it tells who's who and where they're at. And I'm right up in the left corner below Neil Young and just above David Bowie. But it has so many UFO researchers on there. I think Janet would be able to pick them out better than I would, and actually people are emailing me now asking me, who is this and who's that? So I open up the album jacket, and if they don't have it, I can find it and tell them who it is, and I recognize Stanton Friedman on there. But it's a unique concept, because you're right. They copied Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and where the Beatles stood down at the bottom, they have 3 gray aliens. And Daniel Boulay is the one that put this all together, the graphic artists, and he's also a musician, and I think he did a really good job. And I didn't realize that there'd been several parody covers of Sgt. Pepper's, and one of the first ones was done by Frank Zappa. So the cover itself is getting a lot of attention, and now I've been promoting the album through my hot list of 350 radio stations that play me regularly for years. And so I first started sending MP3s to the ones that I thought this music would fit their format. And I've got it on a little over 100 stations since around I started working on it the second week of January. So I think we're doing pretty good, and we've got it on some stations in Europe and Spain, Britain, Germany, France, and Greece. And my song leads off, they chose my song, Calling from a Star, to lead off the first disc, the first song, and Joanna Summerscales gave it a nice introduction, and she is the one that had the idea to do this. She told me about this, a couple of years ago when I was on her radio show in London. And I said, yeah, that's a good idea. Well, her and an engineer friend who is also a musician started contacting all of these bands, and through bands and artists that she had on her radio show, because her show, is a ET-oriented show also, and they found all of these bands and worked on it for a year or more and finally got it released. And it's really unique and different, and I'm getting a lot of response from both listeners from radio shows and my fans, and I'm hoping here that it's going to sell well for her because she put so much work into it.
Now,
where is your picture?
Wait,
I'm sorry, I was
just
asking where his picture was, but go ahead.
Yeah, I will. That one's a good one too.
Are you looking at the cover, TJ? Whoops. I don't know.
We both are. Let me ask one, and then you ask yours. Okay, so I'm looking at the list of artists, and there's 20 different songs. Are they all songs, or are they readings?
Well, in between each song, Janet, there's songs, but in between the songs are sound bites, maybe a minute or 2 minutes, and it's each musician from the particular band telling his experience about seeing a UFO or an actual ET, or feeling like he's communicating with an ET. And there's one of the songs that's besides my song that's getting a lot of airplay is Gary Williams' song, Big White Triangle. And it's about this object that he saw flying over the backyard of his friend's house, and it stopped and hovered there. There's another great one by Mike Oram, who, when he was just a very young boy, saw this UFO in England and saw it go over this hill and land in this grassy meadow, and that's called Travelers. And then there's other songs that are like classical piano parts almost, and John Martin, who plays an acoustic guitar, and they're very ethereal sounding, and they all feel that some other energy from out there downloaded the songs to them.
Great.
So it's really something, and it goes right along with Michael Luckman's book, if you're aware of that. The book he did was about musicians that he interviewed that claimed for sure they felt a lot of their music was inspired and downloaded from UFOs. And the book is called Alien Rock, the Extraterrestrial Connection. And he mentions experiences that John Lennon had, even Elvis Presley, the Moody Blues. He interviewed me and the Rolling Stones. And it's a very interesting book.
yeah, it's the whole concept is fascinating. I know there's a lot more people that have their music influenced or their experiencers. So I'll have to talk to Joanne. I was on her show one time. Now let's go back to the picture. You wanted to know where is Merrell, and I was looking when you said that, but it doesn't seem to be. I didn't see David Bowie, but I found you. But anyway, where are you, Merrell?
I'm up in the left-hand corner, and Linda Moulton Howe is, I think, just above me, and I've got the shades on, and I have the blue robe, but you can't see all of me.
Yeah.
And then Neil Young is just up in the left corner above me, and that's where I'm at. But
and
it's
Rod
almost
Serling.
turned into a game with people emailing me saying, now I think this guy is this person. Am I right? You know, and then people kept asking me who the black guy was in the middle of the very top under the pyramid. Nobody could figure it out, but it's Rashawn Roland Kirk. Yeah.
Where's Jimi Hendrix? He's got
Jimi Hendrix is right in the
next
middle,
to him.
And they put him in there because you know he claimed he came from another planet, and he long time ago in the 70s he claimed he was getting energy from the Space Brothers. And the movie, you know, that was filmed on Maui in 1970, Rainbow Bridge, that Jimi Hendrix was in one part of the movie, they're in Haleakala Crater going through the trail. And the way the story was told to me by people that were walking along with them, and Chuck Wine, the producer, was there, and they had this big, huge movie camera and tripod on a burro, and they had been filming in there, and all of a sudden, one silver saucer came, and this is in broad daylight, came into the floor of the crater and hovered there, and Jimmy walked out in this cinder field with his arms open saying, "Welcome, Space Brothers." And he was like trying to communicate with it, and it stayed hovered there, and Chuck was trying to get the camera off the burro and back on the tripod. And you know, it isn't in the days of these nice high definition little lightweight video cameras that we have now. It was, you know, the big 35 millimeter or 16 millimeter cameras that are very cumbersome. And just when he got it on the tripod, they said the thing shot straight up and disappeared. So Michael interviewed me, Michael Luckman, the author of Alien Rock, about this. And I went over to Maui with Steve Omar, who you mentioned, and we interviewed a lot of the people that are still living there that were in the movie with Jimi Hendrix, and they confirmed all of this. So we made our own documentary called Rainbow Bridge Revisited that I produced, and it has music disc and a DVD documentary with all these great interviews, and that's out, and you can get that from me. Just go to my website, merrellfankhauser.com, and it's available.
Nice.
I was gifted
Rainbow Bridge.
a copy of that. I was gifted a copy of Rainbow Bridge by Steve when I last saw him at Contact in the Desert. I haven't watched it yet. I'll have to pull it out and watch it. And then Sasha,
the one
husband,
we produced, you're talking about, right, Janet?
Yeah, Revisited.
Yeah, it's
yes,
Rainbow Bridge Revisited.
Right. And then Sasha said when Jimi Hendrix was here, they had a a hologram of Jimmy climbing up Haleakala, like a giant. He was like a giant projection. This is back in the 70s. They had hologram technology, and so he said in honor of whatever Jimmy was doing here on the island, this movie plus I think there was an event
He did a
which was
concert
produced
up in the pasture by Seabury Hall,
right.
across from Seabury Hall.
Were you here when that was going on?
No, I wasn't here. I was still in California, and I was living in Los Angeles at the time, playing here. And after our album, the first album, Moo, came out, we made enough money that we decided we needed to move to Moo, which, you know, all the books say Hawaii are the mountaintops of the lost continent of Moo, and because our band was named Moo, we said we have to move to Moo. And so in 1973, we packed up everything, to the dismay of the record company and our promoter and agent, and moved to the island of Maui.
Wow.
Why not?
Yeah.
So what did you do here?
Well, we played a concert, and Leslie Potts's band, the Space Patrol, and Les was in the movie with Jimi Hendrix, opened up for us at the Lahaina Civic Auditorium, and it was packed. It was a big event, and it was, talked about on the radio on Oahu and Maui, and then we started playing other events. We played one in Hana with David Carradine, and his wife Barbara Hershey was there, and Ramblin' Jack Elliott, the folk singer, played, and Bonnie Bramlett from Delaney and Bonnie, and that was sponsored by Red Shepard, who was the star of Hair, the Broadway cast. And then Quicksilver Messenger Services engineer Barry Mayo, who had recorded an album, Just for Love, for them on Oahu, was living on Maui, and he heard us, and he had some leftover recording equipment from Capitol Records, and he recorded an album on us in our house in haiku that eventually came out, and that's out on a 2-CD set on several labels now. And then eventually the band Moo disbanded, and I got together with Mary Lee, the violinist, and we did an album with Bob Dylan's drummer, Bill Berg, and 2 other Maui musicians at the time, and we flew to San Francisco to do that. And it was like a door of inspiration opened for me, Janet, when I moved to Maui, and living in nature, and I wanted to go out and live in the jungle, which I did, and built a cabin, and the songs were just coming out of me faster than I could write them down. And I had one of those little cassette machines, and I would just, sing the song or play it into the machine. And the way I wrote Calling from a Star was actually in 1974. We went to the top of Haleakala Crater to watch the sun go down, and that was with my band Moo, and we were living in a house in haiku. And just as the sun went down, we were standing there with a group of tourists, and there was an older gentleman next to me that had been in the Navy in the Second World War. This blue pulsating light came over the floor of the crater and just stopped. And this fellow standing next to me said, "What is that?" He said, "I was in the war and I saw all kinds of things." And he said, "I've never seen anything like that." And he said, "It's completely silent, so it's not a helicopter." Just as he said that, 2 more little lights came out of it and went up on each side, and they started sending a beam from one to the next, and it formed a tetrahedron, an inverted pyramid. And everybody was just going, "Hoo, wah, what is this?" And this must have gone on for, I think, about 4 minutes. And then they all converged back together as one and shot straight up in an instant and disappeared. And we were just spellbound. We drove down to my house. I got this feeling that something was going to come out. So I always kept a reel of tape on the reel-to-reel tape recorder, turned it on, picked up my acoustic guitar, and instantly the song Calling from a Star came out. And I later went back to Hollywood and recorded it in a studio with part of Steve Miller's band and some other great studio players, with Peter Noon from Herman's Hermits singing with me on it. And it came out on a vinyl 45 in 1978. And it's come out several other times, and in 2003, a station in Cincinnati, Ohio, played it as a tribute to the fallen astronauts from the Columbia Space Shuttle. I ended up getting a letter of it ended up on 300 stations. Other stations heard it and wanted to play it. And I ended up getting a letter from NASA thanking me for writing the song and giving such inspiration to younger people for the space program. Then, to my surprise, I opened up my post office box one day, and there was a letter thanking me from the White House, signed by George W. Bush. So the song keeps reincarnating, and it was on an Italian album in, that must have been about 2005, I think, called The Man from Moo, and now it's the lead song on Eclectia. So it's come back into the spotlight a few times, and I'm very thankful. And
wow.
I had a talk once. My friend Harry Nilsson, who was a great singer-songwriter, had a party in about 1978, and I told him I was coming over here to record that song. And he said, "Oh, come to my party," and they sent a car to get me. And his house was up in the Hollywood Hills, and I walk in with my acoustic guitar, and there's about 30 people there in his big living room, and over in the corner there was John Lennon. So Harry put me on the spot and said, "This is my friend Merrell from Maui. He's going to sing a song for us." I never gotten stage fright in my entire life, but my lips started twitching. So I played the song On Our Way to Hana, which was about seeing two silver saucers while driving the beautiful road to Hana out in the jungle. And as soon as I finished, John said, "That is very interesting. What inspired that?" So people started gravitating over to where the food and drinks were set up, and John and I went off into a little alcove, and we got to talk. And we were talking about songwriting, and he said, "I didn't write any of those songs in the Beatles." And I went, "What?" And he said, "They were given to me by my muse." And he said, "Isn't it interesting what inspires songs and where they come from?" And he said, "My best songs were written in 15 minutes. And I said the same thing. So we really had a meeting of the minds there at that point, and I was so thankful to be able to talk to him, even just for a few minutes, and having the same experience. And he later on had a sighting in New York City on the roof with May Pang, and that was after he and I had met, and we never talked about UFOs or anything that night.
Wow. TJ, what do you want to say? Questions, feedback?
Oh, I just Can you hear me? I'm just really enjoying it. I was keeping on mute so I wouldn't make any sounds, but awesome. This is great, Merrell. What do you want to talk about? Because you're so eclectic as a singer, songwriter, and of course a guitar player. But it's always nice to reminisce of your life story and people you've met and crossed their paths and all of that. But why don't you tell people what got you from Kentucky, where, I told you I lived for 20 years with my husband doing bluegrass music through Nashville, 100 miles away, and then I recorded it with a few people down there and then paid a lot of musicians. But the thing is, you're a singer, songwriter, and you moved from Kentucky, and I guess just give us an idea of growing up, because we all were back in the 60s, and you were hanging out and doing surfing and had this awesome life. But just sort of tell us, what it was like being you, because I find meeting people, we cross paths sooner or later. And I told you about Willie Nelson Round Rock from my parents across the way, and then I crossed his path several times and opened up when he was late getting a gig one time. So we've crossed paths with different musicians, and we went through Gerlach Entertainment in Houston with Bob Hope, Bing Crosby, Frank Gorsh, and Nancy Ames. Those are names you probably know. Different people like that. And then Buddy Rich on the drums, Gene Krupa. But my husband was a trumpet player, and Doc Severinsen would come in and do a clinic, but he got to do a lot of famous things, and I got to sing here and there and open up before Alabama. Alabama used to babysit my children, the band, at the Morris house, and now my name's Morris. So, it's weird how things happen to you, but I just want to sit and listen to how did you get from, Louisville to, I guess, California, and then writing and being a surfer and all of that, just personal. If you don't mind, it's just good to have a recording of it. Stuff
I was born in Louisville. You say it the way they say it back there. When people read it, they call it Louisville, but you're right, they pronounce it Louisville. I was born there, and my dad, actually, he played guitar, and he played guitar and five-string banjo in a Dixieland band for a while, but that wasn't what he did for work. He was a flight instructor and charter pilot, and he raced in Indianapolis. So I grew up in a colorful family, and my mom sang with big bands. And I remember, the cold winters back there in Louisville, and my dad would come out here to California to work or do whatever he was sent out here to do. And one winter I built an igloo in my front yard, and I remember he came back and said, "We're moving to California. I'm tired of these cold winters." And I used to go across the railroad tracks where the black folks lived and remembered seeing them playing music, because I played with a lot of little black kids there that were my friends. And that was my first time, TJ, of seeing somebody play bottleneck slide guitar. And they would just, cut off the end of a glass wine bottle and put it on their finger. And it was so unique. And that kind of stuck in my mind, and I remembered that. And on my 11th birthday, they got me a ukulele, and my dad started teaching me chords on that. And we had made a trip out here to California around that time and looking at everything and seeing the Indians, out in the desert. And I was just, I wanted to meet Roy Rogers and Gene Autry. And so when he said we were moving to California, I think I was 12, about to turn 13, and I was just so happy. So when we came out here, he ended up managing a glider port at a place called Lake Elsinore, where they would have these yearly sailplane contests. And he taught me to fly a Piper Cub when I was only 14, and I later sailed and sailed solo in a Schweitzer 126 glider. and I was always interested in things that fly. And then, you know, in the 50s, they had all those great flying saucer movies. And so I was always asking my dad, Daddy, do you really think there's people out there in space? And he would say, oh, yeah. He said, it's too big for us to be the only ones here. So I was constantly looking for flying saucers, and I never saw one till 1974 on Maui. So anyhow, my musical thing kept growing, and by the time I was in high school, we'd moved up here to the Central Coast, and my dad was giving flight instruction in a town just south of here a little bit called Santa Maria. And I ended up playing solo at a little neighborhood movie theater. And I started out as an usher and a cleanup boy, and the manager heard me on a break when there was nobody in the theater. And I remember I was playing Poor Little Fool by Ricky Nelson. And he went, boy, you've got a good voice and you play good too. And he said, how would you like to get up on the stage in between the two movies in the matinee and do 3 or 4 songs? I said, oh, yeah. And he said, I'll give you $12. And I said, does that mean I get to keep my $35 a week for being an usher and cleaning up? And he said, oh, yeah. So I got up and sang my songs solo with now an electric guitar and an amplifier through a PA. And after the first show, I went out in the lobby and I was mobbed by teenage girls wanting my autograph. And I went, hey, I think I'm in show business. And I think I was about a junior in high school then. And then during my senior year, I met some other high school students that were forming a band. And we formed the band The Impacts and got the house band job around the end of 61 in Pismo Beach at the Rose Garden Ballroom. And at that time, that was the biggest ballroom between L.A. and San Francisco. And we ended up backing up people like the Coasters and Little Anthony and the Imperials, the Isley Brothers, and then people like the Ventures, the great instrumental group who I idolized, would play there, and I got to meet them. And so that just spurred me on, and I started writing these songs, and I was a surfer, and I was writing instrumental songs and putting surfing terms to them like kick out and wipe out and tandem, and just went on, and we had all these songs written, and a talent scout heard us playing from Delphi Records in Los Angeles and took us down to L.A., and in one afternoon we recorded a whole album, and they said it was some kind of record for speed of recording. Went back home, and within a month and a half, the album Wipeout by the Impacts, which is now a big collector's item, was in every store here in L.A. and San Francisco, and that got me started, and I went on into the psychedelic folk era and kept going and never stopped. And now, 50 albums later, I'm still thankful I'm still going.
And that was the second song I learned to play on my guitar when I picked up my guitar when I was 15.
You're
First one was
kidding.
House of the Rising Sun. No, my boyfriend was in a band at the time. Honey, I'm on the radio. Can you make less noise? And he was playing, locally in Pittsburgh. And anyway, I fell in love with him because he was in a band, right? He could sing, and I had my own guitar that I had picked up and just started wandering around the neighborhood, meeting people, and they'd all we'd teach each other songs. Whoever you would meet would teach you songs. And then he came along. He started teaching me Wipeout, and his band was playing it.
Wow.
Small world, right?
Well,
Yeah.
there's a video of me and Willie Nelson playing Wipeout with the band on Maui at the Mac Center in front of thousands of people. And Willie surprised everybody. He pulled out an electric guitar, a Fender Stratocaster, and we launched into Wipeout. And he takes a solo in it that sounds like it came out of an old 60s surf song. Nothing country about it. And afterwards, I shook his hand and I said, "Thank you, Willie. That was great." And he said, "I did that for you, Merrell." And we became instant friends, and we did the whole that whole concert together. And you can see us playing Wipeout together if you go to YouTube and just type in Merrell Fankhauser, Willie Nelson, Wipeout. And I have to
grab that.
I have to say that's a high point of my career, doing that with him, and you know, it just keeps continuing on. All the great people I've gotten to play with and meet, like Carl Perkins, and the list just goes on. And I told you I do a TV show here in California called Tiki Lounge, and I've gotten to have some of my heroes on the show. It's a long list. It's been on for 18 years now, and way over 100 shows out there, and I think there's about a dozen of them on YouTube. If you go to YouTube and just type in Merrell Fankhauser's Tiki Lounge, those will come up.
Oh, I'm going to go
you
grab
sure got a
some.
long history. Yeah. Well, you go back. Let's see. I'm looking at something here. In 87, 43-year-old working musician Fankhauser is best known as the guitar guy of the Impacts, who penned the surf classic Wipeout. Legendary leader of the South California jangle rock bands, the Exiles, HMS Bounty, and is that Faber Doakley?
Faber Doakley, yeah, that's a funny name that I made up from the last names of each guy in the band at the time. And that album is now a very valued collector's album because it has many people on it that went on to be famous. And the songs are really unique, and they're all songs I wrote from 1964 to 67. And a sealed copy of that album, and there are still some floating around out there, goes for over $1,000. A guy from Australia said one sold there for $1,400. So I wish I would have thrown 100 of those in the closet.
Yeah.
My mom
You
kept
never
a
know.
few. My mom kept a few, and my sister kept a few. And when they closed up the record company and studio that was recorded in.
Sorry, I found it.
Yeah, you found it.
When they closed up the record company that the album was recorded in, and the owner had passed away, his son told me to come over, and he found a bunch of my unreleased tapes of songs, and I went over, and they had 4 Faber Doakley albums in the box. And I didn't know if he knew how much they were worth or not. And I said, well, what do you want for this? And he said, well, we just kind of wanted to get the tapes and stuff back to all of the people that are recorded in Dad's studio. And I said, well, here's $200 bills. And he said, oh, you don't have to do that. I said, no, I want to give it to you. So I've got some of those albums now, and I got one framed on the wall in my studio here. And it's when I look back at it now, I went, how in the world did I do all of that? And how did I end up meeting and connecting with all of these great musicians? And it just amazes me. It's like I've lived 4 lives, and now it's almost like somebody else did it. And but I just thank the dear Lord I'm still going.
Awesome. Well,
Yay.
how did you? It says in this one of these television star bulletin type things. You've got so much information out there, folks. Just look up the name Merrell space Fankhauser, Fankhauser. Have a good time. Some people called him Captain Trip back in the day. Were you big on? It says 69. Epic is the best known ambitious musical celebration of the antediluvian continent of Mu, and the album brings back to mind Donovan's 69 Atlantis top hit. So apparently they're trying to find a way to, back in the day, the annotation of Hawaiian Islands and submerged continent of Mu, and the Fankhauser moved to Hawaii, says from L.A. in 73. So it says that there was a lost continent of Mu, so somehow it says your new life jungle, possibly contact with survivors of heirs of the ancient culture. Some kind of thing they were putting in here, it leads to your bits of Indian, big band, new age, acoustic rock, hard rock, hapa-haole music. So did you go from like hardcore surfer to, I mean, like Wipeout and back in the day, because that's what I used to dance to. I know the kind of music. But did you get into like a new age or ascension age, or tell us how you went through your music transition, because apparently you can play anything like Willie Nelson, right? But at the same time, I'm just reading about your history with music only, not your famous, television and movie and things like that, but just your music. How did you go from like surfer music to Mu music, or Hawaiian or
well,
New Agey?
There was a lot happened in between there before the Mu thing came along, because the Wipeout album came out in '62, and then my dad for a while managed a flight school up in the desert, the high desert here in California in Antelope Valley. And we had to move over there, which I didn't like very much, being a surfer and being here by the ocean in a semi-tropical climate, and then moving to this harsh desert with the sand. But I immediately met some kindred spirits there and musicians, and that's where we formed Merrell and the Exiles. And I had been writing vocals, but this studio and where we had recorded in L.A., because the instrumental surf thing just took off right when we were recording, they wanted all instrumentals. They weren't interested in my vocals. So I formed Merrell and the Exiles, and Glenn Records from Palmdale heard us playing at a concert there, and he said, how would you boys like to come to my studio and record? And we jumped at the chance, and we went in there, and he really liked our music, and I was writing a lot of vocals that, oh gosh, I was a fan of Buddy Holly's, and I wrote some songs that kind of sounded like Buddy Holly songs, and then something indescribable that was, I guess, my own original thing that I did. And he would just have me come in with my little band every 2 weeks and record as many songs as we could, and he started putting out singles on us, and they started getting played on big stations in Los Angeles. One of them got on American Bandstand, a song called Tomorrow's Girl in 1967, and I think he put out about 5 singles on us. Well, around 67, he decided he was going to put an album out, and we had moved back up here, and my dad went back to work at the airport in Santa Maria, and we were here in my little town of Arroyo Grande and playing at a local club at that point, and he calls up and he says, I'm putting an album out on you. And I have all of these songs together and the latest things that you've recorded. And he said, I'm short 2 songs. Would you come over and record 2 more? So we did that. And in between there, the summer of love was happening, and everything was getting psychedelic. And, you know, Merrell and the Exiles sort of sounded like a 50s group, and the band guys kept saying, we need something more far out, man. We need something psychedelic. So I sat down with a pencil and paper, took the first two letters of my last name, Fankhauser, F-A, and then we had a bass player at the time whose last name was Parrish, so I took P-A-R. The other guitar player's last name was Dodd, so I took D-O, and the drummer was Dick Lee. So I came up with Fapperdockley, and I handed him the napkin I wrote it on. I said, there's our new name. And they all just went, that's fantastic. What does that mean? So when I told Glenn, he was a kind of he had recorded Buck Owens and different kind of country people, a real down to earth guy, and some rockabilly stuff. He said, well, what are you calling the group now? And when I told him Fapperdockley, and he went, what? Paper doily? I said, no, Fapperdockley. And he goes, how in blazes do you spell that? So I made sure when they did the graphics for the album that they spelled the name right. And he put the album out and sent it to his 50 or so radio stations, and had a distributor. I think he had one in L.A. and one in the Midwest somewhere. And we didn't think much of it, thought, oh, that's a good album. And then we ended up moving down to Hollywood in 1968 and auditioned for two record producers that had worked with Glenn Campbell and Bad Company and some other groups, and they loved us, and they took me in to meet the president then of Uni Records, Russ Regan, and they had recorded 3 demos on us of new songs that I'd written, and he loved those, and he said, well, do you have more? So I sat there in his office with my Martin acoustic and played him the rest of the album, and he said, amazing. He said, you've got a deal. And he shook my hand, and they paid to record the album in the famous Gold Star studio in Hollywood, where Sonny and Cher, the Buffalo Springfield, all kinds of groups had recorded. And the album came out, and it was selling well and going up the charts. We were on the Billboard charts, and it was called Merrell Fankhauser and HMS Bounty Things. And I thought, maybe they could have left my name off the front, but they said, oh, no, we got to use your name. It's so different. And they put out 2 singles on us, and the album, and that album is a valuable collector's album now too, but it's not worth anything like Fapperdockley. And then around, I guess it was 1970, people started telling me that the Fapperdockley album was getting played on various stations, and that people were looking for it, trying to buy it. And its popularity kept going, and I went through the whole psychedelic era and played on concerts with HMS Bounty in Hollywood, with Canned Heat in Chicago, and just large numbers of bands. And then Russ Regan at Uni Records signed Neil Diamond, who just was on a little record label in Chicago, Bang Records, and they started promoting him. And then the next thing they did was they discovered Elton John, and they put out his record. And we noticed all of the promotion went over to Elton John, and we watched our album and our songs falling off the charts. And the other guys in the band were kind of, dismayed at that time, and they were tired of the city, and they wanted to move back up here to a slower pace on the coast. And I ended up getting together with some of my old bandmates from Merrell and the Exiles and formed the band Moo. And the way we did that was we found a book in a house we were renting in Woodland Hills, suburb of L.A., called The Lost Continent of Moo by Colonel James Churchward, who had done all of these studies in the Yucatan and through India. He found Moo written in Chinese legends and American Indian legends and South American Indians. And in there, he described where the lost continent of Moo was, and it was centered right where the Hawaiian Islands were. And he and other scientists said that that land was higher up out of the water at one time, and the lost continent of Moo was the mountain peaks of Hawaii now. So we made some money. We got signed to 2 good record companies, Era Records in L.A., and then later United Artists even took us over. And as I mentioned, to the dismay of our L.A. record label and our promoters and agents, when we made some money, we fled for Maui and set up shop there, and just kept writing from there. And then I met one of the High Lamas from Tibet, and I took refuge in meditation with him, and I got to play music for him. And when I got to Maui, I really went on a spiritual sojourn, and at the same time I was looking for any ruins of the lost continent of Moo that I could find. And the Lama gave me the name Lodru Jansau, which in English translates to Oceans of Intelligence. And I ended up looking through the jungle every place I could look for ruins, and an older Hawaiian guy that liked me and heard my stories about, wanting to find the lost continent of Moo, and he said, I want to show you something. And he took me to this jungle trail that led into this valley, and there was a stone sidewalk going down, and he wouldn't go down there. He said he used to play down there when he was a little kid, but his parents forbid him to go there. They said it was kapu, and the Moo people may get him and take him away. So I went down there, and I felt like now when I look back at it, I was doing Indiana Jones before the character was invented. I came to this flat area in front of this pristine waterfall where there were 3 pillars standing on a stone platform that looked like Inca stonework because it was cut stone, fit together perfectly, not like what Hawaiians do. They just take lava boulders and stack them up and put a thatched roof on it. And there was one pillar that had fallen over and was laying in this little pool. It was like some scene out of a movie. And the pillars were, the only way I know to explain them, they were probably 30 feet tall, but the sides were indented like they had been milled on a milling machine. And then I noticed there was a sidewalk of the same stonework going under the how bush, and I had to crawl on my hands and knees and followed it down to where it went into the ocean. And I could see at least 50 feet out, it was still going under the water, and the lava had flowed over it. So I knew that those structures and that sidewalk was older than that lava flow. And some scientist went down there, and I don't know how they did it. They carbon dated the pillars and said they were over 10,000 years old. So there's a picture of one of the pillars I took in my book, Calling from a Star, the Merrell Fankhauser story. And then I was hiking through the crater, and out in the middle of the lava flow, sticking up, the dried lava flow that was over 1,000 years old, I saw what looked like a pyramid. And you're not supposed to leave the trail. There's signs posted, and the rangers don't like you to leave. But I did anyway, and I had to jump these deep chasms to get to this pyramid. And I tried to climb up on the side of it, but I got such vertigo, I was feeling like I was going to get sick. And I got to a vantage point where I could take a picture with the sky in the background. And I got a picture of that pyramid, which was, I estimated what was sticking out of the lava was 48, 50 feet tall. And I heard much years later, the Parks Department let the National Geographic Society go up there with a powered auger, and they drilled a hole in the side of it, which I was amazed. They let them do that. And they concluded that it's a much bigger structure, that this is only the cap top that goes under that dried lava field. So it goes on from there on the desolate side of Maui, the south side where the road ends, because there's a lava flow there past McKenna Beach, and you can't go any further. There's a stone roadway with stone walls on it going out through the lava field there, the dried lava, and every once in a while a big flow of lava will be over this stone roadway, and you have to climb over that, and the road keeps going. Well, a few miles out on the mountain side, you start noticing all of these foundations and sidewalks and structures that are under the lava, half covered, that were exactly like what I found in the jungle on the other side of the island. And about 7 miles out, by a red cinder cone, there's a great big huge building. And my friend that was interested in archaeological sites called it Lost City Hall. And down in the corner of this large building, there's a hole in the floor and a rickety ladder that somebody made. I went down in this, and I had a flashlight, but I didn't have my camera with me. And there it was, stone floor, stone walls, and ceiling, all cut stone, the same thing on the other side of the lava. And that was quite a hike. I was very exhausted, and my friend that was with me also. And it took us all day to get back to where we had parked the car. And it's very hot out there. There's no vegetation. There's no water. And that dried lava just seems to radiate the heat. And we were wondering if we were going to make it back. And we drank all of our water by the time we got back to the car. But those things are there on the island, and it's in my book. And, you know, I've talked about it on radio quite a bit, and young Hawaiians have actually emailed me and said, my parents and my grandparents never have told me about this. Why is this? Well, I talked to some Hawaiian fishermen, and they call it the King's Burial Ground. And they'll go out just a little ways to a beach and go fishing, but when it gets dark, they leave. They're afraid to be out there. They say you hear all kinds of odd noises and even sounds like babies crying. So that's all.
Is that in Maui?
Book. That's on Maui. And it's all in my book. You can see the pictures, and, you know, I've documented it pretty well. And the book is available at Amazon.com or they can get the book directly from me.
Yeah, I'm going to get it, if you don't mind, on Amazon, just because I can have it shipped here. But Calling from a Star, and you have some pictures of this Moo King's burial off the coast of Maui.
Yeah,
that would be awesome. Not to mention it's
not
your story
off the coast.
Too, right?
It's up against where the last lava flow came out of Haleakala Crater. It's right there on the desolate side of Maui, past McKenna Beach. And the book is called Calling from a Star, the Merrell Fankhauser story. Available at Amazon.
Calling from a Star. Now, how did you come up with that name? I mean, obviously we're bragging about you being ET related and amused, and you get ET downloads with your music or sound waves, but how can you talk about it? I know we're going to sound new agey, folks, but that's just the way it is, because we have to
okay with new age.
Communicate.
I like new age.
Yeah. Okay, well, I call it Ascension Age after 12/21/12, Merrell. I'm like Merle Haggard, Merle.
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 Well, when I wrote the song Calling from a Star, it's like I felt, a real channel opened up to me. And, the video of Calling from a Star that's on YouTube, and the song's still out there doing what it's doing. And I really feel like we are here calling from a star. Connect with us. We need to know you. And it just seemed natural to use the title for the book also.
Love it. Okay, so I've got to find that book on Amazon. I'm going to add that. I'm creating a page on aquarianradio.com and putting a lot of images in there that we're talking about today. And then TJ's
Can we play Calling from a Star, ladies? Can we?
It's still not loaded. No, they gave me the only thing I've got, if you want to take a break for a moment, is I could play the one that was uploaded. Lila, do you like that one?
And that's from the Fapper Dockley album. And as I mentioned, several songs from that album have made it back into the spotlight, even though the album was released in 1967. A song called Supermarket was in the Thomas Pynchon book, Inherent Vice, that they made a movie out of. The song Tomorrow's Girl was nominated for a Grammy in 2011 on the Rhino release, Where the Action Is, L.A. Nuggets, 1965 to 68. And now Lila is in the movie Chappaquiddick. And that movie's been out for almost a year now. So that's something I wrote and recorded in 1967.
Now, do I have permission from you? Because if we go all over FM radio, Stitcher, iTunes, all kind of places. And I'll need your permission to play this. You own the copyright to Lila.
You have, yes. I own the copyright. I wrote the song, and it's in my publishing company, Fankhauser Music in ASCAP. And I give you the right to play any of these songs that you want, Teresa.
Whoa! Well, some of them would be awesome if you let us. We'll just keeping motivated with your music. Let's get this down now, folks. It's 3 minutes and 26 seconds. So we hope you enjoy it. And this is compliments of the original owner and some famous things going on in music. And Merrell Fankhauser. All right, we'll be back in a few moments. Then Merrell, take you a quick break, but listen to this, folks. I'm so excited to be able to play this, and this is news and history in the making on Valentine's Day. So for your listening pleasure, Lila, folks, Merrell Fankhauser.
There she was, just standing by herself.
Lila by Merrell Fankhauser. Wow, does that bring back memories? And you've got to give us some data on that. Was that an old 8-track recording studio? That was beautifully, professionally done. But do you remember any information of where you had that recorded?
Yeah, that was recorded in Gary Paxton's studio. He recorded a lot of songs. He did the Monster Mash, and he did a hit by a group called Skip and Flip, It Was I. And actually, TJ, that was done on a 4-track.
Whoa!
Half-inch tape. And you know, the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's was done on 2 4-tracks, and that's the way Lila was done. They would record, you know, basic tracks, drums, bass, and all of that on 1 4-track. Then they'd do a submix over to another 4-track and put it on 2-track stereo, and you had 2 more tracks you could overdub on.
Wow,
and
this
is
amazing. Awesome.
The sound they got. I mean, Sgt. Pepper's wasn't even done on an 8-track. It was done on 2 4-tracks, the same as that. And since the song has come out in the movie Chappaquiddick now, another label has put it out on CD with a nice, more liner notes and pictures and one of those fold-out CDs, and it's on Gear Fab Records. You can just look up Fapper Dockley if you can remember that label, but I also sell them too through my website. If you go to merrellfankhauser.com, you can get the CD from me, and it's really neat that, you know, these older albums keep coming back, and they pick them for these period piece movies. There's a lot of 60s music in this Chappaquiddick movie, and my song is in a beach scene, and a lot of fans have emailed me and said they played the whole song, but it just wasn't loud enough. It should have been louder, you know. But that's the way it is, but it's causing the song to get replayed on radio and spots. I think, you know, probably 20 or 30 radio stations now have contacted me that they're playing it, and it's available.
You'll get some royalty, won't you, from this?
Oh, yeah.
Let me tell people about this.
They're always 9 months behind in sending you the royalties.
Of course.
But
everybody's got to make their cut before you get it.
Yeah.
Let me tell people about Chappaquiddick, folks. I lived through this. A lot of you did. I know the 3 of us did. It's about July 18th, 1969. If y'all remember where you were, Senator Ted Kennedy drove his car off a bridge off the Massachusetts Chappaquiddick Island Bridge, okay? Now, there was a big deal about this because he happened to have a woman passenger named Mary Jo Kopechne in his car, a 28-year-old campaign strategist who had worked for him, and the reason it was ongoing and was sort of scandalous was now this is just hearsay, okay, you believe what you want or go and do your own research, but she allegedly was pregnant with his baby, and his father helped him. We don't know if he went off accidentally or not, and we don't even know if he really did that or if that was after the fact, and, you know, like I said, this is just hearsay because we all love the Kennedys, and oh my gosh, so many people. We were going to the moon with John Kennedy and all of that, but you know, it's up to you. But
that was
I really
just 2 days before the moonwalk, July 18th, 1969. The moonwalk was July 20th, 1969.
Oh my gosh. It was amazing times, folks, that we lived through. And now you've got a gentleman here that's just full of life and done all this wonderful stuff with his life, been blessed in certain positions in life, and then to find out he's always had this inspiration. And I, too, have felt like I was guided by a star or someone above there, ET connection. So I'm so glad to have Merrell Fankhauser, folks, join us, and his music we're talking about, called Lila, 3 minutes and 26 seconds, is in a beach scene in the movie Chappaquiddick about the Kennedy family, basically Senator Ted Kennedy. Oh, my gosh, the Kennedys are so part of our American history, and we lived through it, folks. So this is very, very historical. Valentine's Day 2019, shared with Merrell Fankhauser, Janet Carroll Lessin, and Teresa J. Morris, which is TJ Morris ET Radio. So we really appreciate him allowing us to play that music and saying we can use his music, which we will have to do that, Janet, and start, because he's an ET, I guess, inspired, or, he's a muse for the ETs, or whatever you want to say. But let's get into a little bit of that.
Yeah.
Now that we've played this, Lila, music, let's get into the, Janet, let's get into his ET inspiration days and all this, because, we talked about
good.
the people that he's got on the front, and, of course, you and I aren't there, but like I said, maybe we can do something in the future,
we'll
something similar with you, Merrell.
Yeah,
Merrell, you're making us famous.
Yeah, I was hoping you could play "Calling from a Star," because that's the lead song off of the new Eclectia album.
Right.
And maybe it'll load up
before
we're done, or maybe you or Janet can put it into the YouTube version somehow. Put it in.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll figure it out.
We'll do that for you. We'll have you back on
the other thing I'd
video.
like to talk about is, since you wanted to talk about the ET thing, is in 2014 I was contacted by Michael Luckman, the author, that was in contact with this World War II radio expert that lived in the hills of Malibu, and he still, did things with radio, and he liked ham radio, and he was talking to somebody in Australia one night, and when they finished, he slightly dialed off the frequency and started picking up these very strange radio signals like he had never heard before, and he knew all kinds of military code, because that was his job in the Second World War, was range finding where the Japanese were broadcasting from on these little islands and atolls in the Pacific. And he just couldn't figure out, this is telling me it's coming from 3 miles out in the ocean and there's nothing there. So he was in town at a coffee shop and telling people about this, how he was hearing these signals. And I guess there was a Chumash Indian guy who was a security guard at the casino that's in Santa Ynez. And he happened to be there and was hearing him. And he told Emmett, the radio guy, he said, well, there's a building under the water out there. And he went, what? And he goes, yeah, it's a dome-shaped building with about 600-foot tall pillars, and there's an opening in the front. And he said, our tribe, the Chumash, who were the indigenous Indians here 1,000 years ago up and down the coast, he said, our tribe has known about that forever. And he said, when the ocean level was down lower, they used to use it as a pier and fish off of it. And, that just amazed him. So that got back to me through Michael Luckman. And then I was on the radio when, they sent me these signals. And as soon as I heard it, I was in my studio and I turned on the drum machine for a click track. I started hearing this melody while I was listening to the signals, and the only way I can explain it, it took me back to my instrumental surf days, and I came up with this low guitar part that reminded me of a 60s James Bond kind of music. And so I played this thing, and then I went out in the studio where the piano's at, because I noticed there was 4 more minutes of this signal left, and I sat down at the piano and just started tinkering around, And I thought, I better push record. So I did, and I played. I didn't even know what I was playing or what key I was in. And I was just, playing along. And I'm an okay piano player, but not really good. I can play synthesizer stuff, but I don't consider myself to be a good piano player. So when it finished and I listened to what I played, I got goosebumps. I went, what? Where did this come from? Then I realized it was a piano figure that I had in another song, part of it. And I don't know if I was just playing, what I had felt and heard before, kind of. But I didn't have any idea where this was coming from. And I almost felt like, there again, these radio signals were playing me. So I recorded the 2 songs with my band, brought them in, sent them to my label in England, and they loved it. And they said, if you do a whole album of this, we'll put it out. So within a month, it was like speed writing. I wrote a whole album's worth of instrumentals in what I term a space rock instrumental genre, which in a way it relates to instrumental surf music to me. So I sent it to them. They put it out. I started doing interviews about it, and I think I did an interview with Janet about it. And after about 30 interviews, it was getting quite a bit of play. And I remember a lot of female hosts. Lynn Nickerson was one that comes to mind. She said Messages from the Dome, the one song with the signals in it, brought her to tears. And this happened with several other lady hosts. So I was on a station in San Luis Obispo. I was in the station live, and they were playing the 2 songs. And a lady called in, and she said, I used to live in Malibu in the 40s, and my aunt and my mom and I would go down to the beach at night and watch the lights go in and out of the water. And I went, wow, that's something. Then that brought to mind when I was a teenager, and I went down to Malibu with some of my surfer buddies for a day of surfing, and we were leaving, and some local surfers were building a bonfire on the beach, and they said, hey, you guys should stick around and watch the lights go in and out of the water. And we went, nah, we got to get back up the coast to Pismo Beach. And my buddy was laughing as we were driving home. He said, oh, they're seeing pelicans diving for fish, and that's what they do up here. And at dusk, the light glinting off of their wings could look like lights or something else. So all of those years, I never thought any more about this. And when this lady said that on the radio to me, I went, wait a minute. And so I thought these signals could be something, that our government was doing, that they were, submarines or something out there. But then I happened to be on Dr. Bob Hieronymus's show from Maryland, and he said, Merrell, I want to play you something. He played me this Billy Meyer tape from, I think, 1970 from Switzerland, I think it was, and his dog is barking in the background, and this Billy Meyer said that there was a UFO hovering over his house, and he recorded the sound it was making on his tape recorder. Well, Dr. Bob played that for me. It sounded almost identical to what this radio operator from Malibu sent me now. So I went, okay, what's going on here? And then when we started playing a lot of messages to the dome, from the dome on radio stations, it started turning off their broadcast boards and actually knocking them off the air. This happened with a station in Sacramento, Ken Hudnall in Austin, Texas, it went off, and Mac Maloney near Boston, it went off. And I think it affected Joanne Summerscale's broadcast when I did an interview. And I thought, this is odd. And I found out that the stations that it seemed to affect the most had newer digital broadcast boards. The ones that were older stations with analog equipment, it didn't affect. So I have a friend that's one of the chief engineers at George Lucas's Skywalker Ranch in Marin, Bob Edwards. So I sent these signals to him and told him what was happening. I said, Bob, what's going on here? So he ran it through a spectrometer and also on an oscilloscope, and he says, well, what you've got here is 3 different signals. There's a lower carrier signal that sounds like a train on railroad tracks. Then there's the high-pitched message above that. And he said in that particular spot where it was causing a problem with the radio stations, there's a higher pitched sound on the top that's inaudible to human ears. And at the near the end of Messages from the Dome, there's a sound there that sounds like a high-pitched lady's voice yodeling, and that's where the problem is. So they've never really, I've had several other people analyze it, and nobody can figure out what it is, but maybe they're saying something in there that we just can't decipher right now.
Wow.
Well, Bob Edwards was the Skywalker sound editor, right? Because you mentioned his name. He had the mixer for the Skywalker sound. Is that right? You want to explain that, your connection to Bob Edwards?
Well, I met him through William E. McEwen, who produced my Return to Moo album, who also discovered Steve Martin and produced a lot of his movies, and he also produced the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band and the Allman Brothers. And Bob actually came down and worked on my Return to Moo album in William McEwen's studio in Santa Barbara, and we got to be good friends. And then when William decided to retire and closed up his beautiful studio that he had, Bob got a job with George Lucas, and he's a very good engineer and very, articulate. And I figured if anybody could figure this out, what was going on, he would. But he told me that there were 3 different sounds in that. It wasn't just one signal. And after I listened to it closer, I could hear what he meant. And when you listen to these 2 songs, you can hear, at one point you just hear the carrier signal, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then you hear woo-woo-woo-woo, and we can't hear whatever is above that. But Bob said the one in the middle that you can hear is the message. But
amazing.
Nobody's deciphered it yet.
Oh, wow. You can't just drop a name Bob Edwards around somebody like me after being in the music industry. I'm like, OMG, because I love engineers, and I really give so much credit to them for, doing what they do. But my gosh, we've got to put him in our Hall of Fame, Janet, in the UFO Association, with sound engineers because of this discovery. And we're getting around to getting organized with all these people, sort of like, I guess, this other lady in the ET biz. But with the UFO Association, Merrell, we'll have to put you in our Hall of Fame for musicians because we've got to create those people that were inspired, I believe, with the ET music and sound. And then now Bob Edwards could be one we could have known for being able to decipher certain sounds in our music and engineering, whether it's ASCAP or BMI or whomever, keeping up with who's who as a producer, singer, songwriter, educator out of, music and films. But my gosh,
so you
he
knew
is now,
his name? You knew his
oh,
name?
yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's on lots of albums, and he's on the credits of a lot of the George Lucas movies.
I love George Lucas. Oh my gosh, my kids remember when they were little that we had to go see Star Wars 18 times.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like,
yeah.
I said 18? They're like, yeah, we gave up after that, Mom. We just 18 times. I was just enthralled with that. I was infected by seeing Close Encounters of the Third Kind, but I had to go to the hospital after I saw that and get Benadryl. But this stuff is just so much a part of me that I'm just
I wish you could play one of those songs.
Sound.
Is there any way you can...
Are anything loaded now?
Anything loaded from Signals from
Malibu? I apologize to everybody. It says processing audio file, messages from the dome, then the same one. But they gave me apologized from the engineering department in New York with this British lady that gives me a recording. They said they were having technical difficulties in engineering and they were sorry, but they've only loaded maybe 1/10, and all three are just sitting here. They load it immediately, with a little green sign that everybody's used to, or the little string, zap, for an MP3 or 4, immediately. So they loaded, but it's inside the engineering department of in New York. We use Mr. Levy's recording sound studio in New York for Blog Talk Radio that he set up himself. It's very well known. It's very well respected, but for some reason they're not accustomed to having a lot of people play music, I don't think. So I guess we got them in overwhelm, but they did give me an apologized type of audio saying, we're sorry, we can't load your music. But I'm sorry, but we'll do something in the future. Definitely.
The one I did the other
storytelling.
night on Tuesday with Mark Eddy and Barbara DeLong, they played everything, and it was like instant. Maybe, like I said, Janet can, if she's constructing the YouTube version, she can, put some of these songs in where we're talking about them.
Yeah, I'm going to put all the, I'll put this recording, I'll put all these pictures so that they kind of feed through.
Yeah, she can embed them.
We'll make sure we have all the pictures.
Oh, the other thing
we'll make it.
I need to mention, too, where we were just talking about our problem, you could put a song over that. But what I was going to mention is that people are sending me and have sent me lights and things that they've seen at Malibu that they've videoed on their cell phones. And I did a video for Signals from Malibu and one from Messages from the Dome, and I used pictures and things that people have sent me from that area in it. We performed it on my backlot stage with my band, and then we dissolved in these pictures that people have sent me. So you can go on YouTube and just type in my name and Signals from Malibu and Messages from the Dome, and those two videos will come up.
Wow, we've got so much data going on. Yes, definitely. We will definitely have to feature you. It's just we've got so much information to download on you. And, folks, this is exciting because we're making history on Valentine's Day with Merrell Fankhauser and Merrell. It looks like Merrell, so that's why I keep saying Merrell, right? Just one L.
Yeah.
But it's Merle, like Merle Haggard, which I should get with my southern accent. I lost my accent when I was in the military, but I got it back when I lived.
Well, my Kentucky accent every once in a while comes out. And if I'm around somebody from the South, before you know it, I'm talking just like them.
Yeah, you guys are contagious.
we don't know that we have an accent because everybody down here talks like us, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't hear a difference from me in Gulf Breeze, Florida, believe it or not. So I'm really shocked because you know I've lived in Kentucky. Now it's a little thicker in various parts of Kentucky, but you know we're from the Appalachian area. But I was born in Monroe, Louisiana, and Janet was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So and you were born in Louisville, Kentucky, or right outside of Louisville, or in Louisville?
In Louisville, and in a hospital, and we lived, you know, sort of more in the country. I remember, you know, there was woods at the end of my street. I was on Adair Street, and I went to a little neighborhood school that went up to the 5th grade.
Do you remember the name of that school?
Yeah, Adair Street School, Adair. And my last teacher was a great teacher. His name was Mr. Little.
Oh, Mr. Little. Well, thank you for that, because I love to get anything like, especially we love our teachers and we love our schools. I went to Plum Street Elementary in the 1st and Mitchell Elementary in the 2nd, and then Ransom in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. But I remember all my teachers and all my school names, and I think that's special because we love our teachers. You remember all your teachers, and I don't know, after you get to high school, there's so many, you can't. But in the 7th grade, I remember Miss Davis was my homeroom teacher. Where do you stop remembering your teachers just for the historical purposes? Is it like junior high and high school? Because I quit
I
after
remember
1 year.
some of them in high school, but you're right, it gets foggy in high school.
I don't know
remember
all of
more
mine.
of the elementary school teachers. Oh, and just as a note, I'm next month I'm doing an interview. I've been on his show before. Greg Martin from the Kentucky Headhunters, who's still in Kentucky.
How about
that? He has a show there. And he did the same thing you did. He asked me where I went to school in Louisville and, you know, what I did. And I remember fishing and catching crawdads in a creek at the end of our road that went into a woods that had a creek that went through it. And, that was something.
Well, see, if it wasn't for... Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. It was something...
it was something... growing up like that, I'm glad I got that experience. And then it was just wonderful that my dad brought us to California, and it just evolved from here. And I think that's why I've done so many different music styles. You know, I don't get stuck in one genre. It just comes through me, and I don't question it. I just go with it rather than, you know, some of the labels. I remember in the 60s, everybody was afraid the band was going to the record label was going to turn them into a bubblegum band and want them to just play this certain kind of music, you know. And I remember some of the labels, once you got a hit with one style of music, they wanted you to just keep cranking that out. And I was lucky. I got to change from one album to the next. Change style.
Well, that's important. If it wasn't for Kentucky, I wouldn't have known how to do what I'm doing with Janet, because it was because of music and the bluegrass and the country. And we had I had a magazine with my husband that we actually published hard copies that are collector's items now.
Wow.
But it was it was Americana music. If you're talking about different genres, but that's why Bob Edwards, I know the name, Sundance Institute, working with BMI and the creative directors, film music programs, and Skywalker Sound. But you said it, and I was like, OMG, because you have gotten around with some big leading people. I mean, the important thing is, and I've had that. I have that gift, that star over my head, to meet people. They just famous people. I've never figured that out yet. And Janet and I are trying to compare our notes, and would love to have you back if it's okay sometime and your busy schedule. Do you have a publicist, do you book yourself?
TJ, I wanted to mention something before we forget.
Sure.
Because you were talking about Star Wars, and there's a book by Preston Nichols and Peter Moon about the music through time, and it's how what do you call it? The subliminals were put into the music. You're mentioning the what do you call that? Yummy, yummy, yummy. What's that style?
Loving my tongue.
Bubble gum.
Yeah,
Bubble gum.
So, you know why that became so famous? Because Preston Nichols was a young man that was watching Chubby Checker, and they came over and asked him. They said, "Does anybody know anything about, sound?" And he raised his hand. He was a teenager, and he came in and he fixed it for Chubby Checker. Then he got discovered by George Lucas, and they put the subliminals in Star Wars, so everybody wanted to see Star Wars 20 times.
Oh,
okay.
Bubblegum music, they tested this theory, and they said, well, let's try this in all these kind of stupid songs,
Wow.
And they all went to number one.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Right.
That is, Janet.
So,
I'm glad you put that. So you plugged another book, Preston Nichols, The Music of Time. And let's mention that's Preston Nichols and Peter Moon on Amazon or Kindle. That's Preston Nichols, one of our old friends from up there close to Chappaquiddick up there. Okay, we call it Montauk Point, folks. Preston Nichols, and you can look him up with the Philadelphia Experiment, Montauk Project, Freemasonry, and also Peter Moon, and he has his own book company. And also, this is Merrell, okay, it looks like Merrell, but it's Merrell, and we need to make sure you understand this is his Fankhauser book, and it's Calling from a Star, okay, Calling from a Star, and it's the story of Merrell Fankhauser, and we're so happy to have him.
In the title, Teresa, you have to say Calling from a Star, the Merrell Fankhauser story. That's the whole title of the book, because if they just type in Calling from a Star at Amazon, they'll probably get, the audio CD for that song. So you have to type in the whole title, because, there's a song, Calling from a Star, and there's the book, Calling from a Star, the Merrell Fankhauser story.
The Merrell Fankhauser story. Okay, folks.
Yeah.
So now you know, and we have to say it at least 3 times in our show so people will hear that. So let me say it one more time. Calling from a Star, the Merrell Fankhauser story is now available on Amazon. He is an author, songwriter, musician, friend to Moo, Ancients, and E.T.s, and he was born in Louisville, Kentucky, and moved to California, and he has been very blessed to know very well-known, very many people in our history and music, played with them, been on stage with them, and I can't even tell you all the names, but we've got a picture up with Willie Nelson here. But he's met the famous John of the Beatles, and who else do you want to say that's crossed your paths? Just name a few. Go ahead.
Well, I met George Harrison in the mid-'70s when he started Dark Horse Records in Hollywood, and I showed him the pictures of my little jungle cabin on Maui and played him some of my songs, and he really liked my song On Our Way to Hana. And the producer that started that album, Dino O'Reilly, ended up being the head of Dark Horse Records for George Harrison. Well, he really liked what we didn't have the album finished yet, and Dino gave him a cassette, and he took it back to England, and the next thing I know, George shows up on Maui, and he goes out in the jungle to an area called Naihiku, which is further out than I lived. I lived in Huelo, and he buys a piece of land and builds a house out there and started writing songs very similar to mine, and I had a song called On Our Way to Hana, and he wrote a song called My Sweet Hana. And the violinist in my band at that point said, uh-oh, that melody is very close to your melody. And I thought it was interesting, But,
well, that's like when they say, think about it, Merle, that's when they send us information from out there for what we're supposed to get and do and receive as receivers. And so we're being sent those things, and not everybody gets them. It's like the movie, what is that one with the gentleman that builds the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where they were sending messages, but only certain people could get them. And he built a mud mountain of Devil's Peak, Devil's Tower. And
he was
so
playing with
it's
his
like
mashed
that.
potatoes at first when it came to him, and he looked at it and said, "This means something." Then he went in the den with clay and started building a model of the Devil's Tower in Wyoming.
Right. Yeah.
There you go. So you saw the same movie, and that. Yeah, we're running out of time. You're right, Janet. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Just want to kind of. Oh well, I just wanted to finish this thread that we were talking about. So George Harrison ended up living in Maui. And you think that was from, he got influenced by your music and your story?
And the pictures that I showed
And the pictures?
Yeah, because the head of his record company said he was so impressed with everything in that environment, and he really wanted to live in that kind of an environment. And, it was a shame that he smoked cigarettes, because that's what got him. He got throat cancer, And he was a very nice guy. I met his son and his wife, Olivia, in a little restaurant in Paia called Easy Cafe back then. And his son, Danny, I remember meeting him, and he was just a little kid. And now I've seen him once or twice, on a tribute to his dad on television. And he looks a lot like him and even kind of sounds like him.
Mm-hmm.
Are all these people that you cross paths in your book?
Yeah, I mentioned all of it, briefly, and I did it all chronologically. And I got Neil Young's book, and he skips around. 1 minute you're in 1964 in Winnipeg, and the next thing he jumps way up to 83. And he kept doing that through the whole book, and it was hard to follow, and other people said the same thing. And I heard an interview by him, and he said, well, if you have a hard time following it, because I do like to skip around a lot, he said, just quit reading.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, it is, because we shouldn't be linear, but we are. And in this timeline, if you believe in time, space, and gravity, we didn't get very heavy with you, Merrell, but I'd like to have you back sometime when you can arrange it, and Janet, your publicist, or whomever, and we'll be more than happy to get into some of this time, space, gravity, and getting people to understand more about precogs. I promised them I'd do readings tonight, precognition, but folks, I'm going to get back to you this week, but this was so important to get Merrell here, because he's so tight on time and going out and doing so many of these things with his famous music. And, it's just that time for him to get this new thing out. Now, let's use that word. Is it electric? Tell us the word again, Merrell, with all these people.
Eclectia is the title of the new album. 17 bands and artists that all feel their music is influenced by ETs or UFOs. And it's available at a lot of spots online, and it's mostly electronically, digitally available. It is available at Amazon, but I also have it at Ocean Records here in California. And that's Ocean Records, P.O. Box 1504, Arroyo Grande, California, 93421. And you can order the CD direct from there, and I can even sign it if somebody wants it signed.
Wow. Cool. I want to mention mine on here just for you, Merrell, that I had some information I received with music and did a couple of them. One's from Atlantis Oracle and Delphi Oracle. And it was music I received in the download, like a channel received in my past lives. So that's available on YouTube for free. Janet likes it, but it's It's on. You can pick it up. Atlantic.
You did that with Scott
Atlantis
Huckabee.
Oracle. Scott Huckabee,
Right.
Yes. Atlantis Oracle is.
Okay, I'll look
and
that
I
up.
don't have any music out there, but I've always been a fan of all your work, Merrell. Anyway, let's. We have like 4 minutes. Where do we want to go to wrap this up? Because we're going to run out of time.
Well, we got to make sure they know how
Merrell?
to get in touch with him, and all of that.
Yeah, Merrell, so your website
and
is.
so we want you to repeat that.
Okay, the website is merrellfankhauser.com, MERRELLFANKHAUSER.com, and my email is merrell@merrellfankhauser.com. And if they want any of the books, the music, the CDs, DVDs, they can just email me and I can send them a catalog through email.
Wonderful.
Right.
Thank you so much.
I'll put your website on this page on aquarianradio.com. And where are you going to put the information for Merrell? On which site, TJ?
Oh, I'll have it on several. I'm going to put it on TJ Morse ET Radio, TJ Morse Radio. I can put it on TJ Morse Agency, Cosmos Expo, Ascension Age, because it fits on so many different of our genres that we have in the New Age and the Ascension Age. And, of course, let's see, probably I think we should go ahead and enroll him possibly in the future with our futurist. And we've got Ericop for future and time travelers, but also for the UFO Secret Space, or especially UFO Association. So, folks, we will do a splash around on today's radio show, so I'll post it a lot of places with some of his pictures, and then hopefully he sent me downloads. And if you want those out there now, but we have to have your permission, we'll put them out there together.
Oh, yes, you have my permission to play all of the music because, people want to hear it. And there's a video for Lila on YouTube also because my agent kept getting requests. We want to see Merrell sing this song because there was never any video of it. And so Lila is under Merrell Fankhauser on YouTube.
Wonderful. Well, you keep that channel going.
L-A-I-L-A? Is that what it
is? L-I-L-A, Lila.
L-I-L-A.
L-I-L.
Lila.
Yeah,
right.
Lila.
So thank you.
I'll pull that up.
Thank you so much.
Page as well.
Right.
Thank
so
you,
we'll have
TJ and Janet, for having me on.
Can we have you back? You're just a pleasure. Just a pleasure of a spirit. Just absolutely
Happy Valentine's Day.
You're a wonderful
happy
soul.
Valentine's
Thank
Day.
you.
Thank you
and we
so
can have him
much.
back. Janet takes care of our calendar, Merrell. So would you email her?
Yeah, we communicate regularly.
I put E.T. Moo Wipeout guitarist up there, so we're now officially our E.T. Moo Wipeout guitarist, Merrell, because we got your E.T. Moo with you, okay? So we're going to connect all that. It makes more sense to my people.
All right.
Love and light. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Janet.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Merrell.
Thank
you.
Okay, warmest alohas. Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, thank you so much. We'll play
Aloha.
Lila to get out of here. All right, thank you. Good night.
The big wireless companies sold you an outdated plan tied to long-term contracts and mystery fees. Simple Mobile's different. You get a lightning-fast 4G LTE nationwide network with no contract, ever. And keep the phone and number you love. Just text the word BYOP to 611-611 to see if your phone is compatible. Simple Mobile. Out with the old, in with the simple.
Standard text message and data rates may apply based on your mobile phone service. Please refer always to the privacy policy at simplemobile.com/privacy policy and the terms and conditions at simplemobile.com/terms and conditions.